Okay. Good morning, everybody. Uh, so we will start where we stopped last class, last day. That is the different signal conditioning schemes for capacitive sensors. We have seen bridge, oscillator, and like this. And next, what we said is the capacitance amplifier. So different types of capacitance amplifier are there. The basic and simplest scheme is shown the in the figure, where we use a simple op amp. Obviously, we are considering an ideal op amp, and two capacitances. Instead of resistance, we use, say, suppose two capacitance Cx and Cf. In that case, we know V0 by Vs is would be minus Cx by Cf. But so in this case, the output voltage will be proportional to Cx. So if we make this Cx as a sensor, then we can have a linear characteristics, output voltage linearly varying with the Cx there. But there is a problem we have mentioned, that always in a practical circuit we use, it is always whenever we consider the non-idealities of the op amp, the first thing is that it is as a thumb rule, you should provide an avenue or some way to okay, I call it RF. So what we say is that as a thumb rule, if most all the op amps are non-ideal characteristics, that is, they have got a bias current, and this bias current can flow to the feedback path. But if it tries to flow to the feedback capacitance Cf, it will charge the capacitance. And what will happen is that ultimately the output will be saturated, DC saturated. So this is a thumb rule. Wherever you use it as an integrator also, you will have to put a very high uh, capacity resistance there. RF should be at least greater than 10 mega ohm or type of. It is better, higher it is better there. Because one thing is that, so it is RF functions only in DC, is that it's providing only a current path for the DC current, but the frequency is such that this impedance, CF impedance, is much more lower than RF. So as a result, the RF there is, while calculating this one, there is RF does not come into picture. So the major EA is that there should be always some feedback resistance. That should be a very high value there, and in AC circuit it does not have much of a role in it, because it will be always, it will be always, the capacitance impedance is lower, so there we can neglect this one. Obviously, that value of Rs has to be chosen also depending upon the frequency. So, another thing is also there, alternatively, T connection. That is interesting. The whole thing is there, but what we do is that so, as I told that RF should be greater than 10 ohm of like 10 mega ohm or like this in this figure. It's getting a higher value, a very high value of resistance is sometimes difficult. Instead of that, instead of placing only one RF, we can configure the three resistances of much smaller value. It is 1 mega ohm, and say one is 2 mega ohm. We can serve the purpose, or basically what we are getting is that between this point and this point in this path we get a resistance which is much more than 1 mega ohm by using this configuration. How? How? So basically, if we look at it, and let us try to see in this part. So here you call it is 1 mega ohm, 1 mega ohm, 2 kilo ohm. So this is the two terminals there. Okay. So you may be wondering that why we are using it. Okay, we may be uh, using a low resistances, but what is the use of it? So that one, it would be clear if we just you see they are in star configuration. So naturally, say suppose I call it A, B, C. So if we convert the star into a delta, and like this there, if we convert it like this, so in that case, what is happening is, what is RAB? Here again, we will have to recall whatever we have studied in our first year on the star to delta conversion. So, what is the star to delta conversion? From this point to this point, the equivalent resistance is this resistance plus this into this divided by this. So, what we can say, it is 1 mega ohm plus of 1 mega ohm plus of 1 mega ohm into 1 mega ohm divided by 2 kilo. Okay? Is it okay? If you have any doubt, we can say it. So here what we get is that 2 mega ohm, and here it is, what is it? it should be uh, 0.5, sorry, you can say 1 into 1 divided by 2 into 10 to the power minus 3. That means approximately equal to, it is 500 megohm you can get it. So that is the thing, interestingly. You are using simply 1 megohm resistance. By employing a start delta configuration, you can say that it is equivalent to a 500 megohm. We are being able to generate a 500 megohm resistance, equivalent resistance in this case. You may be arguing that, okay, what will happen to RAC and RBC? They don't affect, because RAC is that this is coming to the parallel to the uh, that is from this point to the ground. So that is coming basically the parallel to the op amp, and op amp has got infinite input impedance. Similarly, RBC is coming parallel to the output impedance, output terminal. So that output impedance is also coming parallel with this RBC is coming parallel with the output impedance of the circuit scheme of the op amp, but output impedance of the op amp, we know it is very small there. So that is one way we can, it's often you have to be remembered that whenever this is a practical tips, you have to use some feedback type capacitor or like this. It is always better to use this sort of T configuration, wherein you can have a very large value of this one. And naturally, this in the AC circuit, so in the AC circuit, this one will not at all come into picture because of the high value. And this will be only providing a DC path for this input bias current. So we have these things in, I think you just try to remember, and we have this advantage of it. Now we had considered only one capacitance there. In fact, it is more useful. We know that if we use a push-pull type configuration. We have already told last day that why is it called a low input impedance configuration? Because this Cx is drawing some current from the source there, and that's why it is providing a low input impedance path, and that's why it is called a low input impedance path like this. So now onwards, whenever I put a feedback capacitance here in across an op amp, there is always, I will try remember that, okay, that there is some of the parallel resistance have been put always to avoid that one, though it is not shown in the circuit. So the push-pull type configuration is like this, because we know push-pull type configuration gives you a better there, the better sensitivity, elimination of so many. Okay, so we are using two capacitances. There, one is increasing and one is decreasing with the signal here. That's what we have shown. And we are using two voltage sources in series with it, in series, and the midpoint is grounded. The midpoint is grounded here. And obviously, a feedback capacitance type amplifier here. And we are saying that this RF value I am not showing like this. Now, how to achieve? So, two voltage sources in series like this. So, how to achieve that one? We can achieve it by a simple way. It is a center tap transformer wherein so you must have seen in the market it is available, say it is a transformer where it is 909 volt. That means it has got a transformer, actually second, if we apply to 30 volt, actually it is 18 volt output it is given, but there is a center tapping. So as a result here there is a voltage 9 volt here, there is a voltage 9 volt. So these things we can it can be replaced, actually it can replace this voltage two sources. So whenever we show it like this, we can think of that similar type of arrangement there. So we have two voltages, identical voltages V, and which is center point is tapped. So the center point is tapped, I mean rather the midpoint is grounded there. So if it is so, then what will happen? So you can say that this point is at virtual ground. So suppose this is I1 here there, and this is your I2 current is flowing, and this is your IF current is flowing. So what is the value of I1? I1 is equal to V divided by j omega C1. Sorry, not V divided by, rather it is V into j omega C1. Similarly, what is I2? You know, this is a negative polarity is connected there, so there would be a minus V is there, and it is j omega C2. And what is IF? It is I1 plus of I2 is equal to V into j omega C1 minus C2. And what is the value of V0? Is equal to minus of, what is it? This IF into this, we call it a feedback capacitor, fixed feedback capacitor, CF. What we can say it is equal to minus of j omega CF. What is it? No. This current is there and the voltage is basically IF by j omega CF. So if we put it like this, it is equal to V into or we can write it down as minus of V into C1 minus C2 divided by Cf. So, first of all, to be seen that it is independent of the frequency. The output voltage is independent of the frequency and it is only dependent on the difference of C1 and C2. It's not that how much is the individual values of C1 or C2, but it depends upon only the difference between the C1 and C2 there. And if we say like this, say suppose C1 is equal to epsilon 0 epsilon r divided by d minus delta d. C2 is equal to epsilon 0 epsilon r a divided by d plus delta d. That means both of them I consider them to be a variable, push-pull type configuration, variable gap type. In that case, you can say that if we put these values, V0 can be expressed as equal to minus epsilon 0 epsilon r a divided by d square into Vf, sorry, V into Cf. What is that? Sorry, V by Cf into 2 delta D. So, we can have a output voltage which is proportional to the change in displacement or the change in gap delta D, and the sensitivity is twice, and third one is that it is fully linear. You can say that one. Obviously, only assumptions is that this delta D square is much smaller compared to D square. So, if we have that one, you can do that. So, one more thing is also there, what we have seen, that AC voltage we can obtain these two sources by using a center tapped transformer here. But interestingly, this expression of the voltage here output is not dependent upon the frequency, is not dependent upon the frequency here. So naturally any frequency we can use. So the question is that can we use square wave? Because generation of square wave is always easier compared to the oscillations of this one there. Generation of square wave is always easier by using some sort of multi-vibrator concept or like this here. So can we use it? What is your opinion? Yes? Greenart, what is your opinion?
Yes, sir. I could not hear you.
Can we use two square wave voltage sources instead of sinusoidals?
Sir, there might be problem with sir, there might be problem with like subtraction exactly.
Why?
Since sir, sir, I'm not clear, but there might be problem because they are like we construct square waves using a lot of sine waves. I think that there might be problem.
No, no. Theoretically, it is possible. Is it possible or not?
I think so, sir. Theoretically, it should be possible.
It is possible, in fact, because square wave is nothing but superposition of several sinusoidal frequencies. And here for all the frequencies, if we neglect that resistance part, this will be the output will also be equally amplified of the A there, and naturally the output, if we add them, will also become square wave. That's the greatest advantage of this one. Instead of sinusoidal, we can use a square wave A there, and that is, of course, there could be some problem, small problems, particularly related to this RF and A there, but in principle it is possible, and in fact rather I would say that it is easier to implement a square wave generator in IC circuits and etc. than to make an oscillator or like this there, I mean the oscillator, sinusoidal oscillator. So often we will see the square wave is being used, or square wave is being used, and then so you can use then one, and in integrated sensor type or signal conditioning circuit we can use a square wave there. So these are the things there, but primarily they are low input impedance type, and they have low input impedance type, and they are like this. Similarly, we can have another configuration, but the major issue is that definitely we say that it is drawing some current, and that is the drawing some current that may be objectionable to some of the schemes or like this, because they should be able to provide you that much sufficient current for you there. So we can think of another type of configuration which we call it high input impedance configuration. What is the high input impedance configuration? It is a slight change, and basically you want to say and mean to say that it will not, the amplifier circuit will not draw any current into this one. So I can make it so. Here we have used a unity gain unity gain buffer amplifier, a buffer there, so that it is not drawing, for an ideal op amp, it is not drawing any current there. If it is not drawing any current, so that's why we call it high input impedance, high input impedance gate. But the point is that what is the value of V0 there? How does the V0 related to the there? In this case, I can say this is a current I and I1, and so it is I1 plus I2 equal to 0, because no current is flowing there. So we can say it is V minus V1 into j omega C1 plus of what is this? Minus V minus V1 into j omega C2 is equal to 0 there. So what is the value of V1? What is the value of V1? Which will be obviously it will be equal to V0 there. What can you find out and solve it? What is the value of V1? Sorry, rather the V0 or V1? Yes? Anybody?
Sir, V into C1 minus C2 by C1 plus C2.
C1 minus C2 divided by C1 plus C2. So it is also, you can place it, and in terms of delta D also you can do it. But you can also in this case get that this part is basically V0 is proportional to C1 minus C2. And finally, what it would be, that it would be proportional to delta T. So, and one more thing is that it is additional CF, that is a capacitance. What we had it earlier for a low input impedance one was an additional capacitance CF was decided, and the value of the CF has to be put, and the value of the CF will decide you the gain. Here gain is fixed based on C1 and C2 values, and we don't require any additional CF circuit, uh, additional CF circuit, CF in this capacitance there, and obviously we don't require the parallel resistance which we thought of it, that it is some RF has to be put it, that is also not. But both the cases, low input impedance and high input impedance, both can give you linear characteristics independent of frequency and and easy to implement there. And also we have seen, instead of sine wave, we could use a square wave also there. But the question is that which one is better? Which one is better? You may say that first of all, that this is a low Z and this is your high Z. First of all, here which one is better? If we say that here we don't require CF, you don't require this additional RF, and so naturally number of elements required is less. And also the performance is also, by putting the value, adjusting the value of CF, we can adjust the gain here. On the other hand, this one, and also it is drawing some current, and it may cause the loading effect of the sensor. Whereas in this case, the C1 CF is not required, it is not drawing any current. So apparently, so these are the advantage of the high input impedance scheme is that number one, it is not drawing any current, and second thing is that it doesn't require any external capacitance to set the gain of this one, and this will be simply decided by C1 and C2 there. But does this one have some, does this scheme has got certain disadvantage compared to the low impedance scheme? It is there a major, there is some major there, disadvantage of this scheme there, and so that has to be taken care of properly. Anyway, can you tell it? What is the limitations, or the what are the disadvantage of this scheme here? Anybody? The disadvantage comes in terms of what we call it parasitic capacitance. As I told that the parasitic capacitance is a major problem for dealing with the actual electronic circuits and particularly instrumentation. Say for example, this is all connected like this. If we put your hand nearby the wire there would be a capacitance between the hand and this one. Maybe there is some nearby wear going on or like this there would be some parasitic capacitance and the parasitic capacitance, the another element may be moving or changing with time and always this is a problem. So, we have to this parasitic capacitance, we often call it as, we refer to this showing it in this manner. Cp, that is a parasitic capacitance here. This is parasitic capacitance, obviously you cannot avoid, but we need to see that the parasitic capacitance, they do not make any havoc in it. The thing is that in this case, the parasitic capacitance, we can consider that it is obviously distributed, but it is at this point there between this and the ground point here. We can consider the equivalent parasitic capacitance is at this point. But we can say low Z1 is that this Cp both ends, but this point is virtually grounded, this point is grounded. So, no effect, I can say no or very low effect of parasitic capacitor here, because this is at virtual ground point and both, so naturally no current flows through the parasitic capacitance. So, parasitic capacitance will not make any their problem here. But can I say it on this one? Here we cannot tell it because here you can say that this is your IP, and in that case what will happen is that the Kirchhoff's law, this is grounded, this potential is V1, so we cannot say that this will be satisfied, but Kirchhoff's law, if we want to follow, this should be like this. So, an IP path will be created and as a result the V0 will no longer be Vc1 minus C2 divided by C1 by C2. So, the effect of is significant. Obviously, this is one of the major issue, but there are ways to overcome here. So, we can say that the low input impedance or the high input impedance both will be having there having the some advantage as well as some disadvantages also there. Similarly, there are few other schemes there, but I think it would be, you can easily understand these things there. And often I can show you, but what we require of him to need to guard the whole circuit from external other sources or like this there, and it is always better to put everything inside the guard or like this, so that no external interference takes place there. So I can show you a simple scheme for, they call it a guard. Just I wanted to show that, because these sensors will have to be always, you have to be always seen that there is no other external electric field affects the performance and goes into this one. And obviously, in this case also, if we, okay, I go to that point afterwards. But obviously, in this case also, we require to use a phase sensitive detector after this V0 there, so that the voltage can be converted into a DC voltage, and also from this one we can also know the direction, if it is a displacement type sensor, the direction of the movement there. But interestingly, this phase sensitive detector has got certain, of course I will not speak much on it, but what has got, the phase sensitive detector has got certain other performance to it like this there. What you were seeing that earlier, it was a V0 is equal to V into C1 minus C2 divided by C1 plus C2. Obviously, if we consider the capacitance here, Cp will be coming, I think, at this point. We can check it. But what we are seeing that this capacitance, these are ideal capacitance. But there could be also some variable, these are the leakage resistance, or the, it's a non-ideal capacitance if we consider. So there is a, some suppose is R L, I call it RL there. Okay, maybe RL1, RL2, or like this there. Then what will be happening in this case, because of the current flowing through the capacitance, the V0 and V, we can see they are in phase. If we consider the ideal capacitance and current flowing through them is V0, V0 and V are in phase. But in this case, because the current are flowing in this one, but if there is a leakage resistance here, so naturally what will happen? Some current, say suppose IR, will be flowing through this part, IRL I call it. And if we consider the effect of the leakage resistance, and like this, so naturally you can see this current and this current won't be in phase, but rather they will be in quadrature. The current through the resistance and current through the capacitance will be in quadrature. And as a result, if we consider the capacity, because we always employ superposition, if we don't consider this C1 and C2, only consider the current through this leakage resistances there, then we can say that this V0 and V will not be in phase, rather they will be in quadrature. So we can get the two types of voltages at the output. One is in phase component, which is due to the capacitance, and one is in quadrature component, which is due to the resistance or the leakage resistance there. And we know that if we pass any phase sensitive detector, Say suppose we have it, this is your reference, you see the phi is equal to 0 degree. We say the PSD output like this. That is the, due to the capacitance component, it would be have a DC value. But if the phi is equal to 90 degree, say suppose we have the output, same output here, but this is your V reference. So this is your V reference, that is the primary voltage and this. So what would be the V0 output or the PSD output? This will be, if we recall, that during this phase, when this is plus 1, I am just going to the switching type of A there, it would be positive A there, and then negative, it will be inverted, the switch will be inverted, and so it would be like this. So the point is that due to the resistance IRL, the actual component, we can say that this will be like this. So the average equal to 0. So what we can say that the advantage of phase sensitive detector, like possibly I had mentioned it earlier, is not only to make it direction sensitive, positive or negative or like this there, but also if it is direction sensitive, but also if there is some leakage resistance or other type of components there, then it would be able to take out, actually that effect can be neglected using the phase sensitive detector.